Call this meeting to order. Adoption of emergency ordinance to effectuate temporary changes in certain deadlines and to modify public meetings, hearings, and practices and procedures to address continuity of operations associated with COVID-19 pandemic disaster. You please read the ordinance, Davey?
I will. Bear with me, it's a little bit long. Whereas on March 12th, 2020, Governor Ralph S. Northam issued Executive Order 51 declaring a state of emergency for the Commonwealth of Virginia arising from the novel coronavirus pandemic, and whereas Executive Order 51 acknowledged the existence of a public health emergency which constitutes a disaster as defined by Virginia Code 44-146.16 arising from the public health threat presented by a communicable disease anticipated to spread, and whereas Executive Order 51 ordered implementation of the Commonwealth of Virginia Emergency Operations Plan, activation of the Virginia Emergency Operations Center to provide assistance to local governments, and authorization for executive branch agencies to waive any state regulation as appropriate. And whereas on March 13th, 2020, the President of the United States declared a national emergency beginning March 1st, 2020, in response to the spread of COVID-19. And whereas on March 11th, 2020, the World Health Organization declared the COVID-19 outbreak a pandemic. And whereas on March 19th, 2020, the Wise County Board of Supervisors declared a local state of emergency made by the local director of emergency management. And whereas the Council of the Town of St. Paul, Virginia finds that COVID-19 constitutes a real and substantial threat to public health and safety and constitutes a disaster as defined by Virginia Code 44-146.16, being a communicable disease of public health threat. And whereas Virginia Code 15.2-1413 provides that notwithstanding any contrary provisions of law, a locality may by ordinance provide a method to assure continuity of government in the event of a disaster for a period not to exceed 6 months. And whereas Virginia Code 44-146.21C further provides that a local director of emergency management or any member of a governing body in his absence may, upon the declaration of a local emergency, proceed with regard to time-consuming procedures and formalities prescribed by law, except mandatory constitutional requirements pertaining to performance of public work. And whereas Virginia Code 2.2-3078.2A3 allows under certain procedural requirements, including public notice and access, that members of the Council of the Town of St. Paul, Virginia may convene solely by electronic means to address the emergency. And whereas the open public meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act are limited only by a properly claimed exemption provided under that act or any other statute. And whereas the Governor and Health Commissioner of the Commonwealth of Virginia and the President of the United States have recommended suspension of public gatherings of more than 10 attendees. And whereas the Attorney General of Virginia issued an opinion dated March 20th, 2020, stating that localities have the authority during disasters to adopt ordinances to ensure the continuity of government. And whereas this emergency ordinance in response to the disaster caused by the COVID-19 pandemic promotes public health, safety, and welfare and is consistent with the law of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Constitution of Virginia, and the Constitution of the United States of America. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the Town of St. Paul that the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe to assemble in one location forum for public bodies, including the Council of the Town of St. Paul, the Planning Commission, the administrative committees of the Town of St. Paul, and all local and regional boards, commissions, committees, and authorities created by the Council of the Town of St. Paul or to which the Council of the Town of St. Paul appoint all or a portion of its members, collective public entities, and individually public entity, or for such public entities to conduct meetings with normal practices and procedures, that in accordance with Virginia Code 15.2-1413, and notwithstanding any contrary provision of law, general or special, the following emergency procedures are adopted to ensure the continuity of government during this emergency and disaster. Require the physical presence of members of the public entities may be held through real-time electronic means, including audio, telephonic, video, or other practical electronic medium, without a quorum physically present in or on location. And prior to holding any such electronic meeting, the public entity shall provide public notice of at least 3 days in advance of the electronic meeting, identifying how the public may participate or observe. And any such electronic meeting of public entities shall state on its agenda and at the beginning of such meeting that it is being held pursuant to and in compliance with this ordinance. Identify public entity members physically and or electronically present, and identify notice of the opportunity for the public to access or observe an electronic meeting. And any such electronic meeting of the public entity shall be open to the electronic access by the public and closed to in-person participation by the public. And for any matters requiring a public hearing, public comment may be solicited by electronic means in advance and shall also be solicited through telephonic or other electronic means during the course of the electronic meeting. All such public comments will be provided to members of the public entity at or before an electronic meeting and made part of the record for such meeting. And the minutes of all electronic meetings shall conform to the requirements of law, identify how the meeting was conducted, the members participating, and specify what actions were taken at the meeting. The public entities may approve minutes of an electronic meeting at a subsequent electronic meeting and shall later approve all such minutes at a regular or special meeting after the emergency and disaster has ended. It is further ordained that notwithstanding any provision of law, regulation, or policy to the contrary, any deadlines requiring action by a public entity, its officers, including constitutional officers and employees of its organization, shall be suspended during the emergency and disaster. However, the public entities, officers, and employees thereof are encouraged to take such action as is practical and appropriate to meet those deadlines. Failure to meet any such deadline shall not constitute a default, violation, approval, recommendation, or otherwise. It is further ordained that non-emergency public hearings and action items of public entities may be postponed to a date certain, provided that public notice is given so that the public are aware of how and when to present their views. It is further ordained that the provisions of this emergency ordinance shall remain in full force and effect for a period of 60 days unless amended, rescinded, or readopted by the council of the town of St. Paul. But in no event shall such ordinance be effective for more than 6 months. Upon rescission by the council of the town of St. Paul, Virginia, or automatic expiration as described herein, this emergency ordinance shall terminate and normal practices and procedures of government shall resume. Nothing in the emergency ordinance shall prohibit public entities from holding in-person public meetings, provided that the public health and safety measures as well as social distancing are taken into consideration. An emergency is deemed to exist and this ordinance shall be effective upon its adoption. And I guess before we do that, I do need to get a record of who's present and who's electronic. Did Greg ever get on electronically?
He's on.
Okay. So the people present at the town hall are the mayor, Tim, and that's all. Earl and Chief. Is that correct, Mayor?
Johnson's in his office, and Earl's present.
Yes.
The mayor, Tim, and Earl.
That's correct.
Okay. Everybody else is on electronic.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, Mayor, I guess we need a motion to adopt the ordinance.
All right. this is due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the regular council meeting has been canceled. There will be an emergency electronic meeting of the St. Paul Town Council at 6 p.m. on Monday, April the 20th. The only matter to be discussed at the emergency meeting required approval of monthly checks and matters related to the COVID-19 pandemic emergency. The public may observe the meeting by using the following link.
Mayor, this is
Yes.
Monty.
Okay,
I understand that we need a motion to accept the resolution that Debbie just
correct.
read. I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made.
Okay. Okay.
Discussion?
I'll second it.
We'll need a roll, Mayor.
He seconded it, but there's no discussion. All right, roll call, Tim. Tim said aye.
Okay,
Aye.
I can hear him.
All right,
I said aye.
okay. Greg? I heard it. It was weak. He said aye.
Okay.
This is Josh.
Josh, Monty,
It's Ken.
okay.
It's Ken.
Oh, Kenneth, I forgot you.
Yeah, Kenneth,
Said
he said
aye.
he said
You don't
aye.
have your- Okay, I have it recorded. It's a unanimous roll call.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? We have a motion to approve the agenda.
Who made that motion?
Tim,
Okay,
second? Second for approval.
I'll second.
Motion made and
I'll
second.
second.
All in favor, say aye. Motion, the approval of the agenda is passed.
okay.
Approval of treasurer's report, checks and payment deadlines.
Okay, in the packet, I had sent a copy of the checks. I also had on the agenda, payment deadlines. I have asked Wendy not to do any cutoffs this month. And has arisen about charging penalty for late payment. And I would like for y'all to consider waiving those penalties on water bills and meals tax for the month of April and May, or to discuss that.
I'll go ahead and put the motion on the table. Look for a second for discussion.
Discussion, have a second?
I'll second. It was Josh.
Made the second on the motion made by the treasurer. Discussion,
Deb, I think that's a very good idea. This is Monty.
go ahead.
I think that's a very good idea. I think that's something we should consider. And I'm seeing that sort of thing done for a lot of municipal governments. I know HUD has made some directions to us in my line of work, making freezing on rent collections and so forth. So I think it's a good idea, and I'm glad you brought it up. That's all Monty has to say.
Further discussion? No discussion? Roll call vote.
Could you read that again, the motion again?
Monty's motion is to approve the check,
Right.
approve the checks and have no water disconnections nor penalties on late water bills or meals tax for the month of April and May.
Okay. Problem is, it's breaking up. I'm getting bits and pieces.
I know. I do for Greg. That's the only one that's breaking up on me.
Yeah, mine's breaking up, coming and going. I got your motion, though. That's fine.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Call the vote. Tim? Harry?
Uh,
Monty?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
All right. And where's Josh? Josh has got an eye.
And
Yeah, and Ken, I think Ken has already voted. All right. That concludes the approval of the treasurer's report, checks and payment deadlines. First phase of new business is hazard pay. Sawyers.
I don't know if this is going to be a motion or anything. But just a reminder that we appointed our department heads at the last meeting to be able to make any decisions going forward quickly and rapidly. And I would just encourage that for each of our employees, especially if you're a frontline employee, that we consider maybe looking at hazard pay if the COVID cases start to increase in our area, and especially for our police departments, since they're still working a full-time level and are out there would likely be on any call for any emergencies that would be out there. So no action from my part on that, but I would just, our department heads, if they see it needs to be an issue, that they document and be able to report any pay that they think would be hazard time.
The police department is probably the only one that works 24 o'clock and hazardous duty. And their job is primarily coupled with hazardous duty. Would you like to?
I agree with you, Mayor. I think no one's going to do something for a first responder.
I think we're going to vote on hazard pay for the police department. Discussion. I have a motion for hazard pay for the police officer. I have a motion to approve it.
in that motion, I would need an amount. Are you looking at an hourly dollar, $50 a week? Was that you, Tim, that made the motion?
Made the motion. Joshua, did you have some type of figure you made?
I don't have a special in mind. I would like, the recommendation to come from the department heads for each of their coverages. So if it was something that my thinking would be, if Chief Johnson saw that his people were in the line on a regular basis, we had a high COVID rate around here, or they were actually going on call for an affected person that we know has COVID, that retroactively we could go back and mark that as a hazardous day on that. But I don't know if we're at that point yet, but I think, it may be something that we can consider and have a dollar amount going forward.
Monty, can I say something? Are we at discussion?
Yes. Well, I guess Tim has a motion to pay the police officers hazard pay. Did anybody second that?
I can't. I think we,
Second, so we can go to discussion.
all right. That's a second to go to discussion.
Okay, I do have some questions.
Okay.
This is Monty. Are they doing, what are they doing now that's above and beyond their normal work day, because I'm looking at hazard pay in my office only when you are subjected to a COVID issue, not in a prevented measure such as breaking up gatherings or anything like that. But let's say, for example, we do have a COVID patient that is in self quarantine and needs immediate help or something like that. That is what I'm looking at as a hazard pay. And that would not only be police officers, but that might be the fire department as well. And so I don't know that we need to do a hazard pay when they are doing their routine duty. And that's my question. Is there above and beyond routine at this time?
On that, Bonnie, when the police officer gets up in the morning, he's 24 hours on hazard duty. He wears his weapon in his bag. He's the first line of support. It's probably true with the fire department. But they never know. But those two units that probably has hazardous duty pay is the fire department and the police department. I think the places where I have been, the police department was always, when they come out the door in the morning, they're on hazardous duty.
I think if I,
Mayor, Mayor, may I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's part of the daily routine of that position. Hazard pay is strictly for the COVID issue.
May I say something?
Go ahead.
First, I want to the fire department. We could not do that because they're not employees, they're volunteers, so there's no means to do that.
You stand corrected. You're right.
But something that I do say about the police officers is we have reduced the risk of most of our employees by putting them on alternate work schedules. And the example is the office. Wendy and Marty no longer have to interact. They're alternating days. We've continued to pay our employees. The police department cannot exercise that option. They don't have enough people to exercise that option. They have had to continue to answer calls on their 40-hour week shifts. And we, in a way, they are in more hazard and more risk than any other employee because we've reduced the risk of our other employees by separating. And they are the one department that's employed by the town that has absolute frontline contact with all of the public. So I do think that I just wanted you to hear from my perspective that every other employee for the town is working probably 20, maybe a little more than 20 hours a week, and they're continuing full pay, and it has reduced their risk. But the police department has not had that option to have that reduced risk.
Mayor, if I could say something, I think that all across the board, you're seeing increase in calls that the police department is answering, whether domestic or things like that. So they're working more with less.
Well, the police department is the front safety that we have. And they're employed by the town. And when they the thing is, when they get up in the morning and work out with the badge, they're on duty till they get home. And we don't, as Debbie has pointed out, they're 24 hours around the clock. They have to work. I don't know if we haven't decided what the hazardous duty pay formula would be, but I think we could maybe vote on the fact that we will.
I have a question. Other than longer patrolling, what else are they doing other than the longer patrols?
Let me point out that you may have it may be on patrol, but you never know exactly what's going to happen in a stop or anything. And the police officer carries the weapon to protect himself. He's the only one that we have that is armed. And the reason he carries that arm is security.
I have another question.
It's 24 hours around the clock.
What I'm hearing is you're increasing pay permanently.
Well, we'd have to, if we do it, we'd have to have how much we'd want to do it.
That was not the motion, Monty.
Hearing the mayor say.
It was Tim's motion.
Greg, you want to?
Hazard pay during this emergency.
This is Greg. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was just looking at the Commerce Chamber, not the Chamber of Commerce, the Commerce Department. Their definition of hazardous pay goes to people that is affected by extra PPE or personal protective equipment, that physically demanding. And also, I'm looking at waste garbage workers. They're more frontline than police officers as far as hazardous, coming into contact with hazard. And one town I'm looking at is actually doing a $300 bonus for these workers instead of increasing their pay. A $150 to $300 bonus. And two different times, like every 2 weeks, we're giving that bonus out. So that could be an option if we want to do it that way.
Is that a yearly option?
No,
This
it's
is just during the COVID.
this.
Yeah, just during the pandemic.
I know some departments doing that, Greg.
What did you say, Tim?
I said I know some departments are doing that.
Yeah. I know some other organizations that have done what Greg is saying. It's a set amount one time or a set amount per pay period or whatever. It's not, it doesn't have anything to do with their hourly rate.
Yeah.
If this is Monty again, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
That's what I'm doing for those people in hazard situations. I'm doing a one-time extra amount of money to their paycheck.
You want? You buzz in, Harry?
No, but I'm in agreement with what everybody else does. That's a good idea one time thing for police department, maybe like Greg said, even with the garbage pickup. They're accessible also to handling this situation anytime they're picking up garbage. Look how many times they have to handle this stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point, Harry. People are throwing out stuff that they don't want to touch.
Yep, that's true. So I think we'd be looking at the garbage department and the police department. So as to what amount we want to do, I mean, if we want to do $100, $150 a pay period, that'd be fine with me.
Are we on a bi-weekly?
Yes, bi-weekly.
Would that be as a bonus or additional money to their taxable check?
It has to be taxed. As far as I know, Greg, it has to be taxed. So it would just go under additional pay.
This is Monty. I have another question.
Go ahead.
How many do we have? Just specific trash truck people, or is this something that's spread over several?
We have 2 on the back, 1 driver, well, 2 drivers and 2 on the back because they're alternating.
Yeah.
Deb, these are the same people weekly?
Yes. As far as I know,
They need to
Earl
be included.
might be able to better answer that. Earl's still there, Mayor?
Yeah, he's here. He's going to give you the schedule.
Okay.
They alternate, actually.
You got two on the back and one driver that alternates. Alternate days. And total of 6 on the price truck. All right, I think that's a good point. You know, they're right there too.
I'll speak again. How long would this, we be going on with this? Would we be doing it monthly or quarterly or what?
I can simply speak just for what the housing authority is doing at this time. It's just during the stay-at-home order that the governor is doing at this time.
Through June 12th right now.
June
What
12th.
we would be doing right now, yeah.
So they give us 2 more months.
That's correct. That would be 5 pay days, 5 pay periods, actually.
Okay.
Can I offer an additional Tim's motion?
Go ahead. You're up.
It would be to add $100 of officer pay per pay period for our police department and our traffic.
All right, Joe.
Broke up a
Josh,
little bit
I'm
on
gonna
me. Carl.
say,
Say that again.
Substitute motion. Is that okay?
I couldn't hear it. You were breaking up on me.
Josh said he would offer and I'm gonna call it a substitute motion, $100 per pay period for police officers and garbage department workers.
Is that through June,
Through June
June
12th, Josh?
June the 10th?
Whenever it is, yeah.
June the 10th.
Okay.
Okay, I'll second his motion then.
Motion made and second. Discussion. There's no discussion. The motion is carried.
Got to vote.
Got to vote.
Roll call vote. Tim?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Josh? Okay. Who else is in here?
Monty?
Money.
Aye.
All right,
Kenneth?
motion carried.
Kenneth?
Kenneth, yeah, I forgot Kenneth.
Okay. All right, I got everybody.
All right. Hazard pay proposed by Sawyers, it's been resolved by motion and passed. Item number 2, Business Relief Fund, Sawyers.
Before I start, and maybe to help with some of the discussion, can we all mute?
Hear that, Josh?
What do you say?
Is everybody muted, Mayor?
Okay, maybe that'll help with some of the breakup there. And feel free to unmute if you need to ask a question or anything during this. But right now, some of our businesses right now are having a hard time. There's been some great federal programs that have come out, but they're extremely hard for some of our small businesses to get access to. And my understanding, the funds within them were claimed within a day pretty much on those. So I was hoping that we would be able to set aside some money in both a two-pronged program. One would be some grant funding that we would have available to be able to get to our business in an extremely quick way. And then also through a loan program with zero interest that we would be able to send these out as well. This would be set up through the IDA that they would be managing this. So we would need to send the funds over to the IDA to be able to manage this. But my motion would be that we send $100,000 to the IDA. 30,000 of that would be for a grant fund that they would be able to offer. 70,000 of that will be through a 0% interest program that they would be able to offer to the businesses. The grant program will be allowed up to $5,000 per individual business. That applies. The loan program would be up to $10,000 per individual business. That applies. And that could be on a 3 to a 5 year loan, depending on how we set this up. The IDA has set up loans before through minors and merchants, and I believe Carter Bank and Trust. So they would actually be the lender. The IDA would just be backing the loan with the funds that we send over to them in this manner. This would allow them to accept the funds and establish and distribute this out. My suggestion also would be that a committee was formed to be able to review the applications as they come in with a partnership between both the IDA, the town council, Main Street as well.
Can I ask a question, Josh?
Sure.
I don't know if you read Kathy's report today, but she got a $10,000 grant from Main Street, and she kind of laid out how she plans to use that. But she has applied also for a $25,000 grant, and she's hoping to distribute that, but she needs a $25,000 match. Do you think that maybe some of this could be used to match hers? Because then that would really give us $125,000 to work with.
Yes, I think that would be great if we could use these funds as a match from the ones that are with the IDA.
Okay.
This is Monty. I want to discuss this. So is that a motion you got on the table, Josh?
Yes, I'm sorry. That was a long-winded motion.
Okay, I'll second your long-winded motion for discussion.
And Josh, I hope you have that written down somewhere that you could email to me.
Yes, I'll send that over.
Thank you. Okay, I've got the motion and Monty second.
All right, repeat it. Oh. Motion made and passed. Roll call.
Seconded, Mayor.
Wait a minute.
Ready for discussion.
Well, I've asked for it. All right, I was muted. Second. Discussion now.
Okay, for discussion, Josh, I've read a lot about the Norton Strong program. This sounds very similar to what Norton is doing. And just in today's paper, it appears, well, actually tomorrow's paper, that Wise County is doing this also, and then Lenawisco is. So it looks like this is a common practice for some of the local governments to do that. So I like your idea about the committee, but I would want Kathy, if you all have read her report today, and Kathy's report says that 8 businesses are temporarily closed and a total of 36 full-time positions have been laid off across the downtown, which includes restaurants and so forth. Her report is very, very detailed, and I think I'm very willing to consider this. I like this idea. So I would think that if we do form a committee, I would certainly recommend that Josh and Kathy be on that committee should this motion pass. Got to say right now.
He will be appointed to it, Monty. He should be, yes, you're right.
Just also to note, as we work through this, through committees and through the application, the grant portion of it, my intention would be that it would be through a reimbursement procedure. So these businesses would have to document any expenses that they spend on payroll, utilities, rent, inventory to reopen the business back up. So it wouldn't just be a $5,000 check that we would be writing to a business, but this would actually go towards costs that they are incurring and hoping to keep them open through this challenging time.
Josh,
Monty, can I mention something else too? Before a person could be approved for this loan, they would have to be current on their taxes and be current on their business licenses.
Yeah, I saw that language in Kathy's proposal for her grant program, and I think we would adopt the same language on taxes and business licensing.
I would want that in the motion, Josh.
Kathy's,
I would definitely add that to my motion, Deborah, if it can be that specific for the IDA,
Okay.
or if it needs to be when the IDA approves accepting the funds and the guidelines around the grant program.
if you go ahead and put it in the motion, that'll just be mandating that it be in the guidelines. So that's fine.
Then I would amend my motion to include being up to date with any business license and current taxes through the February period.
Okay.
all right. Debbie, read the motion again.
Let's let Josh read it again because I got most of it, but I don't think I got all of it. A motion to send $100,000 to the IDA, $30,000 in grant, $70,000 in loans, and create a committee. And that's where I lost you.
That will be just the additional details. The loan would be a zero interest loan that can be awarded over a 3 to 5 year period. With
Okay.
the IDA partners with local banks.
With the IDA backing the loan,
Yes, the IDA would actually just be backing the loan
guarantee it.
through a local bank.
Okay.
With the addition of the current taxes and business license.
Okay.
Also, you need to add to that about maybe loan payments. If anyone owes us loan payments. One more thing I just want to ask is this email that came out from Rick Colley, VCETA and Lena Wesco. Do we know if anyone's applied for any of these loans? It was up to, I think, $5,000. This email came out Friday, by the way, 17th. Has anyone applied for any of these loans that you're aware of?
I don't know of anybody that's applied to the Wise County option or any of the other ones that have just been announced recently. I do know some that have applied through the federal programs. I know of one that was awarded, and I know of multiple ones that did not make it in through the PPP program.
And on behalf of Sugar Hill, I'm going to be abstaining from the vote, but we applied for the PPP money for both of our businesses here in Norton. We were awarded ours this past Monday. I would ask that the application process be fairly simple because the link that Kathy sent today for Chamber, I think it's Chamber, we're not going to try to apply for it. The application is just way too long. It's you know, to be turned down or whatever, it's really not worth it for us. So, and the city of Norton's put $200,000 out so far. We did that one out there and got it. I think yours is a 50 month, 0% interest. We decided our payback terms on it are
Greg, did you apply for one that said, it's called the Region Head? That was the one that sent out from Rick Colley.
Yeah, we talked about that one. I think it was Mondays when we first heard about it. Jennifer's looking into it, but there's another one called Virginia 30 that I don't know if anybody else got it around here, but that was a $3,000. But we're looking at coming out of this thing probably about $140,000 in more debt than we went into it. And so, we're borrowing money. A loan is something else we don't need, but we can do whatever we have to do to stay open.
This is
I talked
Monty.
to Bob Harrison today about that. Bob told me that he thought you could get around $5,000 with this loans through VC there. Let's go. That's all I have.
This is Monty again. I don't know that we would actually be privileged to know who made the applications for others programs. I mean, Greg's sharing with us his finances, but we would be able to partake in whatever the town sets up. But I just don't know quite how that would work, if we would be privy to know the specifics of other applicants through Visita and things of that nature. But again, I think this is a good idea for the town to show an interest in. You go look at Kathy's report and look at the hair salons, that we forget about. So anyway, I'll be quiet right now.
All right, let's review what we got on the table that we're going to vote on. What he recommended, it's like we want to vote on that. Second thing is that Kathy will be part of it. Now, are there any entangled areas that we need to include on it, clear up before we actually have the motion read?
Mayor, I was also asking that it be Josh and Kathy be on that committee with Bob Harrison.
That's good. I think we approved that anyhow. I thought we did. It's approved now.
Thank you.
Before we move forward as well, I'd also just like the record to note that I do have a registered licensed business in town, but I will be abstaining from submitting any funds on behalf of Lab 20, either between myself or my wife. So I would not be applying for any of the town's funds that we offer through this. So I will be voting on this issue.
Gosh, that's wise that you disclose that. And Debbie, I think that needs to be noted in the record.
Got it. What's it called, Josh? Lab?
Lab 2020.
Debbie, when you can read the motion with all abstains, but like Josh, when he withdrew because of conflict.
Okay. Josh, I'm going to make an attempt here at this motion again, but please feel free to correct or add to when I get through. Councilman Sawyer's motion was to send $100,000 to the IDA to be dispersed $30,000 in grant funds, $70,000 in 0% interest loans with a payback of 3 to 5 years, and create a committee to review applicants. The process would be the IDA would guarantee those loans. The banks would actually make them. They could be up to $5,000. And then he added on that all business license and taxes must be current. And also for the record, neither he nor his wife will be applying for any funds for their business Lab 20. And the motion was seconded by Monty.
I'm sorry, I just need a clarification. There was a request in that motion to establish a committee to review the applications.
Yes.
Establishing the committee. I didn't hear that identified.
Well, Josh, was that going to be part of your motion to make, was that part of your motion for you and Kathy?
I think it was.
I think ours is a suggestion. I think the IDA needs to establish the committee since they will be
Thank you.
monitoring the funds.
I would agree with that. So yeah, if that could be specified in the motion.
I got it.
IDA will appoint the committee.
Okay.
Debbie, you got everything there. The only thing that I would add is the grants will be awarded back as a reimbursement.
Oh, kind of like we did the cleaning.
Yes, they just need to turn in any invoices or expenses, all that, and we would reimburse at that rate.
Okay.
All right, read it again.
I'm sorry, Mayor. What was that?
I think you should read it again. Because you made 2 more changes.
Okay.
We got it right.
Councilman Sawyer's motion was to send $100,000 to the IDA, $30,000 of it, which should be grants that are awarded as reimbursement of receipts, $70,000 at 0 interest loans to be paid back, the guarantee of 0 interest loans to be paid back on a 3 to 5 year basis, and a committee to consider the applications. He added that all business license and taxes must be current to be eligible. And he also added that the IDA will be the group to establish the committee. And he wanted for the record to know that he will be voting on this matter, but neither he nor his wife will be applying any funds from the town or the IDA for Lab 20.
All right.
And the motion was seconded by Monty again with all those additions, Monty? Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. It's been made and second. No more discussion. Roll call vote. Eric, Monty,
Aye.
Greg. Holbrooks. Okay. Let's see, anybody else left? Oh, Tim. Motion made and carried, unanimous.
I'll vote aye as well.
All right. Well, naturally.
All right, I got a unanimous roll call. Aye. Okay,
That's correct.
gotcha.
All right, item number 3 on new business. Letter to Food City, Sawyer's. Okay, he talked to me, but go ahead. I know
Our Food City does not offer their curbside to go option that they have. It is an option that they have at Lebanon. They also have at Wise and Big Stone Gap, where people can go online and order their groceries and they're actually delivered to the parking lot. I would like, as the council, that we would write a letter to both their local store and Food City headquarters, just requesting that this service be looked at for the St. Paul location during this time, since our citizens, it helps the social distance better and would be able to help combat the COVID-19 situation.
I have to make a comment that that's a very good idea, really. Especially for people that just can't get in and out too well.
Josh, if that was a motion, I second.
I have a second. Who seconded?
Seconded.
That was me. It's Ken.
I got you.
Ken seconded. All right, motion made and second. Discussion. No discussion. Roll call vote. Tim. All right, second, who's gonna vote next? Josh? Motion. Harry? Greg? All right. Ian?
Aye.
All right. Who else? Did we gonna get them on?
Monty,
Monty.
and we got Tim, right?
Yeah, we got Tim.
Okay.
Motion made and carried. Write a letter or give him a call.
All right.
Emergency management. Monty.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, you can, Monty. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Since April the 4th, I have, my office has been involved in a COVID-19 issue that a lot of you all have read about in the newspapers. It's probably one of the most struggling issues I've ever dealt with in my 45 years at the Housing Authority. I can tell you right now, if it had to happen right now, Appalachia emergency management situation has been a tremendous, tremendous help. And being on the council, it's made me think a lot about our little town. And I have a 7-story high rise in Appalachia with a main entrance and then 7 hallways. And in the town of St. Paul, we have the Stonebriar property that has a main entrance and 3 hallways. And we also have apartment buildings, similar structure, what I call Jerry and Nidra's apartment. I don't know the name of that building. We had the Phillips building across the street from Bob and Susie's place. We have Richard Jesse's building, and then we have Ronnie David's building. All of them have main entrances and common area hallways within the structure. That has been a real problem for us at Appalachia. The building was put on quarantine, and it went off quarantine as of today. And I'm not sure if in the town of St. Paul that we have a system set up to handle such a thing. Do we have an emergency management system in place in the town of St. Paul? And Earl, you can probably answer that better than anybody.
Earl, you want to approach that?
I'm muted. Guys, I think we, with the fire department and the local EMS agency, we can do pretty much anything that we need to. We've increased our stock of PPE. We should have a sufficient amount on hand to deal with anything that we actually need to do. Again, within the town, that also goes for police department and your public works guys. We have a fairly sufficient amount of PPE to do that. As far as an emergency action plan or an EAP, whatever, you know, we could, we have a generic one that is considered, I guess, an all hazards plan that can be utilized for pretty much any hazard that happens to be out there. So, you know, we can come up with pretty much whatever we need to within a short period of time, should that be necessary.
Are you our designated emergency management chair or whatever that might be? I'm not sure what the right words would be.
Don't know that officially, no. Of course, you know, with the state of Virginia, there are some legal ramifications of the fire chief. They do have some authority to do some things above and beyond. But no, I don't think that we have an official emergency services coordinator designated in town.
let me mention something to you. If had I not had an emergency coordinator in Appalachia, we would have not gotten a lot of things done. For example, landlords need to know, have contact information about their residents. There's issues, anything from an animal up to a vacant unit that people have to be aware of. And I think that we need to designate a person as our emergency management coordinator. I just think it's essential based on what I've been through. So I'll put that in the form of a motion designating Earl as the emergency coordinator in the event we do have a COVID issue in the town of St. Paul. And we can put a second to that and have some more detailed discussion, because people, it's very concerning. This now has hit 20 people in Wise County. We did lose one resident who passed away due to COVID-19. And it's getting a little bit worse here in Wise County, even though it might be subsiding in other places. It's gotten a little bit worse for us. So I put that in the form of a motion to designate Earl as our emergency coordinator.
I'd like to make a comment. Earl has been here a long time and he's always been considered, but you're right, we don't have it in. And we put you, that's a question. And have a second? Made a second discussion?
Who gave the second? I didn't catch it.
It was Ken.
Ken gave the second.
Thank you.
Yep.
Motion made and second. Discuss?
Well, in discussion, if we are stuck, if we are hit with something like this, then there would have to be a hazard pay considered for that sort of thing too. For example, let me just tell you, for example, I have not been able to send any personnel into our building until today. However, there's a great deal of reluctance even after today because the building's not been disinfected. And I'm looking at a great deal of money that my insurance is not going to cover for cleaning that building. When you have a building under quarantine, somebody has to be able to go in there to provide meds, to provide food. If they have an assistance animal, that animal has to be taken care of. I'm learning so much that has to be thought of. And we might want to touch base with all of our landlords for them to have current information about their residents.
Monty, let me ask you, in terms of insurance, can the landlord have a stipulation, considering what we're talking about now, an angle toward him, maybe a rider in his insurance policy to carry that?
Mayor, I can tell you right now, insurance is not really responding to this very much, as Bob Harrison will tell you. And insurance is not covering COVID-19 issues either. So I don't have an answer for that. I think we need to find a way to reach out to landlords to maybe give them a list of things or things they need to be aware of, and have current in the event it happens in a building. And that's what happened. We had one individual that contracted or was diagnosed with COVID-19, and it spread to two others. And then it caused the whole building to be under quarantine. And I just think there has to be a way that we need to get some current information of who is residing in our buildings. Some of our buildings probably, I can't recall Ronnie David's building, but some of them we might be able to work with Water Bill, who has water in their name, but some of them may be master metered. I don't know about all of the buildings at all.
You say about water meters?
Sorry, Mayor, I did not understand you.
Did you say about water meters?
simply saying that some people may not be able to, we might be able to get information from water meters.
Yeah, there are a couple that have them individually, but there's also some that have master meters. So you would not be able to get it from those.
I'll be glad to, I've been through in Appalachia in hopes that we're prepared should it happen to us in St. Paul.
Says he can take care of that.
Sounds good to me, Mayor.
We have a motion on the floor to vote. What is the motion?
The motion was by Councilman Sayers to designate Earl Carter as the Emergency Management Coordinator, and the motion was seconded by Councilman Holbrook.
All right, and we've had discussion. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Yeah.
Anybody saying nay?
No nays.
Thank you.
Motion made and carried. Okay. We've covered items 1, 2, 3, 4. They've all been voted on. And is there any further discussion, anything else for this meeting?
I only have one question regarding the letter to Food City. Josh, did you have something you had in mind particularly? Do you want the mayor to write it? Would you like for me to write it?
I'll submit a draft over to you tomorrow.
Okay.
So feel free to make any edits from there, but I'll just have just a simple letter of thanks for everything that they're doing, the request,
Okay.
and that'll be it.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Mayor, I've got one thing.
All right.
I just want to say thank you to Wesley and Travis, and Earl, for putting this stuff together. Appreciate it very, very much. And I know we had some difficulties, but it turned out to work just fine. Thank you, fellas. Appreciate you.
You come back, Monty. All right, is there anything else that we discussed? Well, is there anything you want to pick up before we go? Or shut down?
Nope.
All right. In that case, this meeting is adjourned.
All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you.